We're live, 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 live. No more swearing. Okay, the Rogue Wiki is not coming tonight. She's fighting a headache. So let's start in. We were in chapter 11, the three scopes. And as a brief overview, this is, oh, thank you.
Little scope.
Thank you. It's talking about motivation. The small scope, small mind, is one who's acting with future rebirths in mind. So wanting a better life, want a better future rebirth. The medium scope is one who just wants to be out of samsara. It's like self-liberation. And the great scope, of course, is bodhicitta, the one who's attaining to Buddhahood and wanting to liberate all beings. So we were in the medium scope, and the medium scope is broken into two. Lesser mental capacity, greater mental capacity of the medium scope. So the first one, the lesser capacity, is where you, first of all, the whole entire medium scope, the person in medium scope thus has a strong desire to escape from the wheel of suffering, that is, from all samsaric states. To do so, one must free oneself from the delusion of self-grasping. And this freedom is attained by cutting the ties of karma and the kleshas. All right, the kleshas are the afflictions, the negative mind states. So the person of medium scope but lesser capacity recognizes the 6 root and secondary and 20 secondary kleshas, and then contemplates their karmic effects. One needs to contemplate how unvirtuous karma leads to lower realms and virtuous to the higher, and how steady karma leads to the form and formless realms. We had one Dzogchen master here, I think it was just before Kalachakra in 1990. When was that now? 95? 97? Thank you. Hi. And I asked him what was the most important, mental quality for Dharma. He said stability. So this is talking about what? The stability. Steady karma leads to the form and formless realms. So that steadiness is a good thing in itself because it gives steadiness. So this is the outline of the lower capacity for someone of middle scope, someone who wants to be free from samsara, and that's the way you can approach it. The kleshas and the conditioning. But then, for someone of a greater mental capacity in the middle scope, middle aspiration, should contemplate how sentient beings come into existence, also called the 12 links of interdependent origination, resulting in the realization that the wheel of samsara is like a bucket on a rope going up and down in a well. All right. Since now it lists I think they're called Samyuna, forgive me, I forgot the Sanskrit, 12 links of interdependent origination. And they talk about dividing into 4 branches or categories or causes. Propulsive causes, the cause of existence, the result of the propulsive causes, and the result, which is existence. So it gets into great detail here, which is really getting deeply into the weeds, but basically the 12 um, links of interdependent origination. If you've ever seen a wheel of life, you have this mirror that's being held by this ferocious looking being, which is actually Chenrezig. I think maybe it's Mahakala, I'm not sure, but it's Chenrezig anyway, Bodhisattva of compassion in a wrathful form. Why is it wrathful? Because it's not angry, understand. It's just that it's not what our worldly mind thinks. So it's like it's this mirror that's reflecting things back exactly as they are. And because of our attachment, we see it as like scary looking. But this great bodhisattva then is holding this metal mirror, which is reflecting the realm of desire, the six realms. And then you see around it, there's also this drawing that shows beings going, down and up and down, around and around and around throughout the six realms. In every one of those realms, there is a Buddha. Even in the hells, there's a Buddha there. So our mind is always pure, and yet we find ourselves in these very, very painful or frustrating states. Further on the outer links of this mirror, looking like decoration, are these 12 links of interdependent origination. So it shows you there are all sorts of wonderful symbolic meanings there, showing these 12 links. So he lists first, he breaks them into four categories, propulsive causes, and then the causes of existence, the result of the propulsive causes, and finally the result, existence itself. So just to read through them quickly, just to give you a taste of it. The three propulsive causes, because again, we're doing 12, right? So each one of these four categories has three, which ends up 3 times 4 is 12. The three propulsive causes are ignorance, throwing karma, and consciousness. So think of that. They are propulsive causes. And the three causes of existence itself are craving, grasping, and existence itself. The ignorance, going back to the beginning, the ignorance as the propulsive cause may be linked to a farmer, and then the propulsive karma to the seed, and consciousness to both casting the seed to the ground and the ground itself. Craving and grasping, which are the immediate or direct cause of existence in samsara, are likened to heat, moisture, and fertilization. So they have these beautiful images that have been honed over, centuries, really. This simple kind of teaching, which helps you understand the more profound concept. Heat, moisture, and fertilization. In other words, affecting that seed, how it's cast down, it's planted, and then nurtured, which is the cause of existence. Causes of existence is a type of cause very close to the result, whereas a propulsive cause is more distant. So this shows you some of the complexities of karma too, because you can have, like do a very negative thing, and it might not have an immediate effect. And of course, this is very difficult for people to believe then in karma. But on the other hand, we've actually seen this in our own lives too. Even forget about more than one lifetime. You see something that happens, like in a childhood, and then has a bad effect or a good effect even, way, way in the future, this propulsive cause. And the immediate causes of existence, of course, we all see, you touch a fire and it's hot. So during the first instant, there is the propulsive karma. And in the second instant, as the seed is being cast, thus requiring consciousness, it changes to potential power, also translated as instinct. This may be likened to wood in the first case and to its catching fire in the second. While existing in the formless realm, only the potential power of the five senses remain. But upon returning to the realm of form, senses also return. So as I touched on last time, this is getting into, really very kind of profound metaphysics, the ancient Indian system. And for the Buddhist, they adopted that too. Again, we sometimes hear it gets a little confusing in the English because we hear about the six realms, like I was just talking, but they also talk about three realms. So the six realms are the realm of desire. Every type of existence at that level of wisdom or ignorance, you might say, um, has to do with desire. Even wanting to be free of desire is a desire. We're just wired that way. Included in the higher realms of the realm of desire are the sensual God realms. We read about these in the text. Buddha was reborn from one of these realms. His mother, after her death, went to one of those God realms of the realm of desire. And Buddha at one time disappeared for a month. He was teaching his mother in that God realm. So these are described as exceedingly pleasurable states, but they're still sensual. They still have desire. And it's said that, the beings, you know, uh, they communicate by music. They're wearing, flowers and silks, and everything is just very, very pleasant. Their sexual interaction is by glance. Everything is just much more refined, but it's still subject to desire. It's also said that the suffering in the God realms is the most intense of the six realms. It's said that at the end, they live very, very long lives. Everything is beautiful. It's so harmonious, so pleasurable that there's no motivation to do anything. Gods could come to enlightenment. Humans can too. Humans form the best platform from which to come to enlightenment because we have the right mix, not every human, but we have the right mix of suffering and leisure opportunity to work on our minds. But in the higher realms, the leisure is so great, but they don't have the requisite suffering. And it's just like when everything is going really well, it's hard to see this as suffering and want to work on the causes of the removal of suffering. So in the sensual God realms, they're there for a very long time. Everything is just sweet and wonderful. Everyone's praising you all the time, and it's just like easy and just nothing went wrong. But at the end, when your karma runs out, it's said that the flowers that you're wearing start to rot and that your body starts to smell. And of course, when you're talking about people who are communicating by music, this is like really heavy and gross. And so the god, male or female, is excluded from every group. And that of course, is very painful to be excluded in a social situation. And then before they die, they're able, because of their enhanced mental power, to see where their next rebirth will be. And of course, it's going to be lower than there. So that's a great suffering. So that's the realm of desire. Now, above the realm of desire, you have two stable realms. Why? Because there's no desire there. One is the higher God realm, which is called the realm of form, but it means subtle form. Mm. Above that is the formless realm, Rupa Dhatu in Sanskrit. And there are four what are called stations of Brahma, or the temples of Brahma, as it gets exceedingly more and more subtle. It's still worldly. You can sit in there for an eon, and yet at the end your karma runs out, and you move down to the sensual gods or even the desire gods. But in these four stations of Brahma, see, the first one is can I remember? Um there's one that is emptiness, but not the emptiness with a capital E, not an insight into the nature of appearances and reality. It's just there's nothing. Your mind is just free. There's no desire, but there's also no senses. So it's just the vastness of the mind, so to speak, is there. And then above that, I think, is the infinite consciousness. So it's a step more subtle than just being aware of, like, no sensual existence, just consciousness. And then above that, I can't remember what it is. And then finally, the highest one is neither perception nor non-perception. That's how subtle it becomes. Now, the greatness of the Buddha is that he had attained to these states and realized that they were not the final answer. So he was not attached to those states at all, and he went on digging into his mind further and further and further, deeper, deeper, deeper. And then the genius on top of it is when he came out and then later began to teach the Dharma, he spent weeks, uh, one whole week around 7 different weeks around the Bodhi tree under which he had come to enlightenment. And one of those weeks was devoted to just formulating the Dharma in his mind. How do you talk to people who are not enlightened? And it's such a genius thing. I mean, genius is the wrong word. It's just such pure blessing because he took these four immeasurables and related them to us right here in this realm of desire. So the realm of infinite, of emptiness became love, non-objectified love. The realm of vast consciousness, only consciousness became compassion, wanting all beings to be removed from suffering and removing the causes of suffering. And then the next one, the one that I forget, is the realm of like a spontaneous joy. Gaur Rinpoche described this once as the easiest way to enlightenment. It's that the bodhisattva sees a virtuous thing happening and participates in that mentally, and you get the merit for that. And then finally, the highest realm, worldly realm of neither perception um, nor non-perception. He related that to equanimity, impartiality. But the difference for the Buddha and the Buddhist system is that you get to that impartiality through love and compassion. Because in the worldly way, of course, impartiality is like indifference. It's easily mistaken for that. And so when the lamas teach on the four immeasurables, they start with equanimity or impartiality because you have to understand where you're going, so to speak. And also it has that quality in the love and the compassion that they're teaching. It's not like, I love my family more than I used to, which might be true, but it isn't a clinging kind of love. Again, compassion without object. All right, so we're still on the 12 links of interdependent origination. The instinct resulting from both virtuous and non-virtuous acts has the power to manifest itself. For instance, if one studies something thoroughly in childhood, leaves it, and returns to it many years later, one has the power to regain the former knowledge quickly. It is the same for spiritual power or attainment, which passes from one lifetime to another. The instinct is placed in the stream of consciousness, its result manifesting in another rebirth, and it is due to this that some children have more learning potential than others. This is such an important principle, though, because often, we're Americans, of course, we're all in a big hurry. It's like, nobody wants to chew willow bark. We want the active ingredient, the aspirin. That's what we're after. We're always for these big concentrated kind of things. I was just amazed, how I was thinking the other day when I was a kid, I used to go to, sound like this is a real old fart story for sure. I went to our local drugstore and they had a counter, a soda counter, a lunch counter. And you could sit there and you could buy a Coca-Cola. And they brought this Coca-Cola out and it was like 6 ounces, maybe, And then we get into our time and, 12 ounces isn't enough. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. Right. Of course, there's caffeine in there. Everyone's revved up on that. And then what do they come out with? Now, these energy drinks, these powerful things. I haven't even tried one, but we want more and more and more. So the instinct is really interesting because this is the thing. As we are sitting here doing mantra, and you can think, oh my goodness, my back hurts. I can't remember what the mantra is. I'm tired. When can we go? How much longer? All of those distracting thoughts. Instead of being wholly into the mantra recitation, there's all this other stuff going on. And even if you're into the mantra recitation, partially, it's just like, this is practice. But what that's doing is that it's setting up this instinct. Again, it's like a kid practicing basketball. You see those professional, guys shooting like shooting free throws or whatever. They've done it a million times. They don't have to think about it. The body has its own kind of wisdom, so to speak, that just does it in the right way. And so too with us. So none of this practice is wasted. Existence immediately follows these six causes. To elucidate the latter three more clearly, a sredpa is a strong attachment to one's present body, especially when death is near. Lanpa is attachment to a form in the future life, and ridpa is the equivalent of samsara, is the increased power of the karmic seed, here at its strongest. This results in conception in the mother's womb. It's said that in the bardo, we have a bardo body, which is like a dream body, the body that you existed in a dream last night, completely immaterial, able to do amazing things like, go to Jupiter in a moment and come back. There's just no limits. So the bardo body is wandering around and in a state of ignorance, and the emotions can be very, very powerful because it's not grounded in like a gross physical body. It takes something to move you. These emotions are anchored to some degree in our physical body, whereas in the bardo they're not. And it's said eventually that one is born out of attachment and aversion. These two very strong and fundamental. It's like the first bifurcation of basic ignorance, basic not knowing, non-recognition of our true nature. The first split is just into two, because this basic knowing causes us to conceive of ourselves. We have this amazing assumption that I'm just here and everything else is different from me. Everything else is something else. It is not me at all. And we give it a solid outer existence called the container, and when we are the contained. So, what does that mean? With this wrong idea of this independent, absolutely independent self, unconditioned by anything, then there are things that the self wants, and that's the attachment. And then there are things that the self doesn't want or fears, and those are the aversions. So it's said that you see two beings in sexual congress from the Bardo state. And if you're going to be, it's flexible, but the one who's going to be your mother, you feel attached to. The one who's going to be your father, you feel aversion to. And so this process mindlessly results in a conception. Okay. The five results of the propulsive causes: dependent origination of birth, name and form, growth and development of the six entrances, contact, and feeling. So the result of existence is the dependent origination of old age and death. So if you get existence, you're going to experience old age and death, dependent origination. Between the time of waking up in the morning and now, one has collected propulsive karma of all types, leading to all types of birth. And each karma has its own cycle of 12 links. Contemplating the 12 links leads to insight into the nature of the self and strengthens one's wish to be free. It is impossible to experience all 12 links of one karma within one lifetime. 2 or at most 3 lives are required. Normally, one experiences the first 6 links in one life and the next 6 in the next life. The detailed exposition school states, however, that only one life is needed for all 12. And I don't know the detailed exposition school. I don't know what that translates in. I bet I've probably heard the Sanskrit name. I'll check that out sometime. Anyway, just before death, the strongest collection of karma, or that with which one is most familiar, takes effect and propels one into the next rebirth. Hence, again, the importance of practice. That gives us some degree of control because we have all these kind of lurking, propulsive karmas in our mind stream. But if we're actually practicing whatever we're practicing and habituating to, it's like stronger because it's higher in our conscious mind, which means it has more of an immediate effect. However, if a person's karma is that which would result in human rebirth, but then then near the time of death, he collects karma which results in a God rebirth, the latter karma will determine his next rebirth. If the karma of the first three links is different from that of the second three, the latter take immediate effect. And the karma of the first three is stored and takes effect in another lifetime. Thus, in such a case, 3 lives are needed for the complete effect of the karma to appear. But for any birth, all 6 causal links are needed. This is so heavy for me and so, detailed, and you feel kind of humble even like reading these terms that they have studied all of this and that have worked on it in this way, in this kind of detail. This is all from studying the mind, Keen.
The opposite of best.
Well, yeah, because karma is trying to remember the term, just my old mind, user friendly. It's interactive. You're involved with it. Whereas fate is just like, oh God, here we go. I'm at the top of the roller coaster and suddenly I'm headed down. Your fate, you can't get out of that. You're going to be at the bottom. So you're in this roller car that you had nothing to do with other than sit in and scream. Whereas with karma, you are the roller cart. So you get yourself there. It's interactive. That's it.
Philosophical opposites.
Yeah, pretty much so. Pretty much so. The popular view of karma is like fate, kismet, fate. They say it like that, but that's wrong. That's wrong.
They don't realize that it's engaging.
Right.
Right.
Right. That you have a role.
I mean,
No. But also, if you think about it, I mean, karma is cause and effect. Like Rinpoche says, all of Buddhism is just cause and effect and emptiness. Cause and effect in the relative conventional sense, experience, and emptiness or the great wisdom on the wisdom side. And if you realize this like is the great freedom, because normally when bad things happen, we feel like such a victim and we look for some outer form, outer condition that we think is the problem, that we think is the causal problem rather than a contributing effect. And hence we blame other people when actually the root cause is in ourselves. And so that frees you up. I mean, it just frees you up. You don't have to find hatred anymore, an enemy. I mean, you can find people that are doing bad things and hopefully correct that too, but you don't have this absolute belief that if I could just get rid of this person, everything would be wonderful, or country, or whatever. Contemplating the 12 links of interdependent origination is extremely difficult. Well, now I feel better.
just when you thought it was going to be easier, it gets harder.
But understanding how one wanders into samsara is essential in order to escape. The Buddha said that if the 12 links are understood, one understands emptiness, and that this leads to Buddhahood. In order to understand this doctrine, one needs to practice morality and cut off personal delusions. Although contemplating this doctrine requires much time and effort, one must not shrink from its difficulty, but rather use one's pride and let this be a source of energy. After realizing that ignorance is at the root of our wanderings, one must find the path leading from it. And that's the key. It starts with ignorance. In all 6 realms, there is no better form than the fully endowed human body with the 8 fully ripening aspects. The human body is the most suitable for Tantra because it is born from a womb and has the 6 elements, including the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and air, channels, and drops. So this is referring to the subtle body, which is the object of meditation in the Tantra. 6 elements, obviously earth, the body, water, blood, fire, warmth, air, the breathing, the breath. And then for the subtle body, additionally, the channels, I think 80,000, 70,000 channels throughout the bottle in which drops, tigles, these essence of the Dharmakaya travel so they can be manipulated, which give, powerful effects, beneficial effects in our conscious way. Pardon? Yeah, the winds. Right. Right. Uh, living in accordance with the law of cause and effect is the first door to general practice. The perfect path is the teaching on moral discipline, shamatha, which is calm abiding or single-pointed concentration, and prajna, wisdom. Our ignorance concerning the self is like a tree, clear, sharp wisdom. That's vipassana, latong, special seeing, it's called. So our ignorance concerning the self is like a tree. Clear, sharp wisdom is like the axe used to cut down the tree. Shamatha is like the ability to strike the tree in the same place each time. And moral discipline is like a strong body which wields the axe. Combining these three, the tree of illusion is easily felled. There are many synonyms for shunyata, emptiness, like the many names in different languages for water, but all mean the voidness of the mind. So here are some names, the synonyms for emptiness. This very thing. Second, chunyin, the nature of things, the sphere of things. That's Dharma Dhatu, I believe. Inseparable from enlightenment. So emptiness is inseparable from enlightenment. Emptiness, Dzogpa Chenpo, the great completion, freedom from samsara. Emptiness is also voidness of an independent self-existence, Tomani. Emptiness is ultimate truth, the way it exists and the way we understand it being the same. And then finally, it's the great middle path, neither accepting nor rejecting, Madhyamika. So here's the names here in Tibetan, which I always have more difficulty with because of all those silent consonants that pop up there. Duma Chenpo, Huma Chenpo. Anyway, yeah, so those are all, and this is important to understand too, because in all these teachings on Dharma, people hear all these different terms floating around, and they often don't realize that they're just synonyms. It's like Gaura Rinpoche says, it's like our mind is like a great jewel, clear jewel, and all these different facets. And we hone our understanding by understand the different facets, viewing from this aspect, whatever. We're using our conceptual, conventional mind to see into the nature of that mind. Sort of like we're using the waves on the ocean as a method to look into the depths of the ocean. So you can see how we're easily confused. People get lost in the waves. But with guidance and teaching, it's like you know where to look and what not to be distracted by. Okay, continuing on the middle scope, the person who just wants to be done with it, out of samsara, out of suffering. It is impossible to imagine how much Buddha Shakyamuni taught, for all his teachings are not included in the Tibetan canon. His teachings lead to both higher birth and to nirvana and enlightenment. Taking refuge and following the law of cause and effect give only temporary relief from the three lower realms, so that one advances to the medium scope. But then, seeing that this does fully benefit others, one progresses to the great scope, realizing that all sentient beings are one's mother. So they present this, this progressive path. Which seems to me to be tremendously skillful and wise. So here you are, you're practicing, the middle scope, wanting just to be free from samsara. And as you're experiencing the benefits of that and the validity of that, then you realize the same is true for other beings. And this desire to liberate others, you want them to experience this too, naturally arises. And this is the arisal of bodhicitta. This is the arisal of the great scope. So again, the small scope is just like I'm thinking about future rebirths. I want a better rebirth. So I'm going to do generosity because I'll be reborn with lots of wealth. And the middle scope is I just want to be done with this because I see even if I have a great wealth, there's still all sorts of malarkey that happens, including my own attachment, my own limitations. So I want to just be free of all of that. And then when you practice the middle scope, you realize it's not enough. You're working for your own liberation, but there are all these other sentient beings. They need to do that too. And suddenly there's bodhicitta, the cause of Buddhahood. All right, so the great scope. The main practice of the person of great scope is the development of bodhicitta. In this development, one needs first to attain equanimity towards all sentient beings. And for this, there are two methods. One may visualize in succession a person hated, another loved, and one to whom one feels indifferent, or visualize all three at the same time. Hatred visualized on the right, the loved one on the left, and the one to whom one feels indifferent in the center. The latter method has been found more effective by meditators in Tibet. When you turn your attention to the one you hate, let your aversion arise. Then ask yourself, why should there be this feeling? The person may have treated you poorly in this life, but has been very kind to you in a former one. There are no grounds for such a partial reaction towards him or her. Now recall the one whom you love and let all your attachment for him or her become manifest. Likewise, contemplate that in a former life, this person may have inflicted unbearable suffering on you, but because this is lost from memory, you only know how he or she has treated you in this life. By such contemplation, equalize your feelings towards these two people. View your reactions towards them with detachment, realizing how absurd they are. And finally, meditate on one towards whom you are indifferent, and recall that in your countless previous lives, he or she has been both your friend and enemy. Thus, there's no reason to feel differently towards him or her than you do towards your enemies or friends of this life. The quality of change in relationships with other from one life to another is also very evident during one lifetime. And isn't that true? Equanimity towards all creatures is the basis of bodhicitta, and it is impossible for bodhicitta to be generated without it. As you practice these contemplations, apply them to your daily life, first toward your neighbors, then toward your community, and keep expanding it as you become more and more skilled. Recognize that your immediate reactions towards others are due to karmic forces from recent lives. It is a mistake to let your feeling towards others depend upon what they have done to you, for you thereby blindly react to their more recent actions, utterly ignoring the fact that both you and they are in a constant state of change. Atisha had 157 gurus, but only one of them taught him bodhicitta. To receive this teaching, he spent 13 months at sea, sailing to the Golden Island in Indonesia. Whenever he heard the name of this guru, he felt deeply moved and filled with gratitude. Shantideva wrote, even if all bodhisattvas assembled to determine the best means to guide sentient beings, every one of them would say that bodhicitta is the most important. Unquote. Bodhicitta is essential for the attainment of all bodhisattva levels and enlightenment, and there is no bodhisattva or Buddha who has lacked it. Equanimity must be developed first, then develop the attitude of thinking of all sentient beings as your own mother. You must not simply let your mind remain indifferent towards others, but rather develop love, then greater love, towards all living beings. Tracing your stream of consciousness back in time, you see that since there was no beginning to your previous lives, you have had countless mothers. Understanding the nature of past lives is necessary in order to see this, and having done so, you also realize that all sentient beings have at one time or another been your own mother. To think of yourself as having only one mother is to be a very limited mental scope. Nagarjuna wrote, quote, if you were to take all the evergreen seeds in the world and then remove one representing your present mother, the number of the remaining seeds would not equal the number of mothers you have had, unquote. When thinking this way, I am only one and there are countless other beings in the universe. How could they all possibly have been my mother? Imagine how many times during beginningless time you have been born as an insect, bird, human, so on, and it will more easily be seen how all living beings really have been your mother. The mind is at first inflexible and tough. It is hard to realize this. If this is the case, go to a lonely, secluded place and call out, "My mother, my mother." Another method is to imagine that you have no mother. Then it will be especially clear that you do have a mother. Following this, try to realize that your father has been your mother in a past life. Then further broaden the scope to include all living beings. Atisha once told a disciple to hurry to a certain place, as his mother was in great trouble. The disciple went and found a pony strangling on a cord. Such an attitude towards other beings is what you wish to strive for. Although you may think that this present body is your own, in actuality, the blood came from your mother and the bones from your father. This feeling about the body is natural, and the feeling that all beings are your mothers should be equally so. You get a sense, too, knowing these fundamental teachings, when we practice tantric practices, some of these inner offerings that are made, you're starting to see what they're talking about. Because the blood and the bones, this teaching that the bones come from your father and the blood comes from the mother and the bones come from the father. You know, there's in Vajrakalaya a couple of nights ago here, we were offering the bones and blood. That's what's going on here. It's an inner understanding.
No.
Yeah, yeah. But we're making those offerings of ourself, basically.
Phone.
The bones are the, yeah. The heap of bones, right?
Yeah.
Pile of flesh, heaps of bones, ocean of blood. Meditate next on the kindness of mothers, remembering first your own mother, then the kindness of all mothers. Worldly love is mixed with attachment and passion, but the love that arises through remembering this kindness is free of these kleshas. If you think that your mother has not been kind to you, it is because now you are an adult. But you should always remember that she carried you in her womb for 9 months and cared for you as an infant. All mothers treat their infant children with tenderness and compassion. All the teachings you have received should be used for the development of bodhicitta. Most important scripture is, I can't read it in Tibetan, the oral tradition of Maitreya Buddha to Asanga, which deals with the 6 causes and the fruit of bodhicitta. So again, they talk about these 2 ways of developing bodhicitta classically. One is Maitreya, and the other, I think, Asanga, but I don't quote me on that. You might come across it here. But one of them that he's referring to here, the 6 causes of Maitreya. This is not Maitreya. I don't believe Maitreya, the future Buddha, but Maitreya, a great practitioner as a human. At any rate, you know, you think this, and then it leads to this, it leads to this. You start thinking about your mothers. You know, you think of all sentient beings being your mothers, and then you think of the kindness of mothers. Naturally, the gratitude to your own mother grows, but then you realize all these beings, so the gratitude expands. And then you naturally have this wish to want to pay back. Uh, and then you get to a point where you feel powerless, like without hands. Like, how do I do that? How can I possibly benefit all these motherly sentient beings? I have to do it. They've given me so much. You feel this so strongly in this meditation. And then what happens? You have to take a leap. That leap is bodhicitta. So you take on the vow of bodhicitta. The other one, the other way of developing bodhicitta is tonglen, is exchanging yourself for others. So we all know that meditation, but those are the two ways that are taught. If you have not developed the attitude of holding all beings as your mothers, remembering the kindness of mothers is not effective in developing bodhicitta. The kindness of mothers can be seen even among animals. For example, a mother bird can be seen with her young. Mother bird stays with her young, even if danger approaches, and she is willing to give her life for their protection. Your mother carried you and bore you, raised you up, and made your present existence possible. So never hold a grudge for the few unkind things she may have done to you. Doing something fine, you may think, I have done this, feeling very independent. But whatever has been accomplished has resulted from your mother's kindness. Yeah. As an infant, you were like an earthworm, but your mother had great joy in you, lovingly cared for you. You could not speak, but your mother talked and laughed with you continually, never leaving you alone, unprotected. Your mother slept irregularly and lightly while you were young, always thinking of your welfare. When you were older, she taught you to walk, speak, eat, and so forth. And later on, she was concerned with your education, growth, occupation, and marriage. Nearly all mothers are like this. A mother dog vomits up food for her pups. A mother bird constantly fetches worms for her chicks. But when the young are grown, they forget their mother. If you do likewise, you will be no different from animals. A mother's love and care arise naturally, effortlessly. Realizing your mother's love, turn to your father and see that his love is the same. The only difference being that he's not your mother in this life. The attainment of enlightenment is due to the kindness of others and is impossible without it. Following the paramita yana, the path of the perfections, or path of the bodhisattvas, requires one's own effort, but also the help of other beings. Without others, one could not practice the 10 virtuous acts, attain a fully endowed body, or meditate on love and mercy. Not only is there motherly kindness, but also the kindness of living beings towards each other. All superficial pleasures, such as the happiness of receiving praise, are due to the kindness of others. When eating just a handful of rice, consider the difficulties undergone by others to make this possible. Sowing the seed, watering, fertilizing, harvesting, packing, and sending the rice, and finally selling it. All the people involved thus worked for the benefit of others. Shantideva wrote that spiritual attainment is half due to the kindness of all sentient beings and half due to the gurus and Buddhas. In Tibet, there was a famous bandit who made a practice of raiding caravans. Once, while so engaged, he accidentally struck a mare with his sword, and her foal emerged from her womb. Even as she was dying, she tried to get up and lick her foal dry. Seeing this, the bandit quit robbing and followed the Dharma. One should strive to realize such love. This is maybe a good place to stop. It's very instructive to realize the length of this chapter is almost entirely on the great scope of bodhicitta. So there's a teaching in that. This is so important. Like they say, the cause of Buddhahood. It goes on and on and on. And I don't want to do the damage of like trying too much at once, and it doesn't sink in the same way. So bodhicitta, yeah, is really, what they say all about. We have all these wonderful methods, but without bodhicitta, they don't really have any meaning. They're just kind of like, I don't know, fantasies or toys or something like that. So this is for real benefit. There you go. There you go. All right. Any questions? Anything? Oh, Zoomers too? Anything from anybody tonight?
That's why I'm here, because I don't know anything from the I've been a doula for 7 years this year in June. Every time I meet a new baby, I'm like, now I see everyone as babies. Means everything.
They were a baby. Right.
Like, I know that's what I'm doing. Like, was a baby, even people who are still babies. It's like,
Right.
oh, well, wow, you're a baby. Like,
Right. Right. Yeah.
be a midwife so bad. It's like, oh, we all got some start, some sort of start, and maybe we went to different directions.
Yeah. Yeah.
They stuck on the mother part of that. Like, I'm okay with everyone being babies.
Yeah.
But everyone being my mom, like, I was not very
Yeah.
well raised by my mother. My grandmother was more of my mother.
Yeah.
And God rest her soul, she did her best.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't like my
Right.
like I love my grandmother and her mother. And
Right.
that's
Right.
Oh,
We had a lama come to the United States for the first time, and he was here, and he was giving a talk at Writers and Books, and he was talking just about this, about loving all beings as your mother. And then he stopped at any questions. The first question was, I don't love my mother. And welcome to the West. Because for the Tibetans, this is like, um, never heard of it. Because even if it's actually the case, it's kind of suppressed. So they have to comport with this. But the founder, Jigten Sumgön, of our particular tradition here, um, he addressed this very question. And he pointed out similar, he touched on it here, the Geshe did, that because the human form is the most advantageous form to come to happiness, to come to enlightenment, to come to Buddhahood, that even a mother who abandons her child, the Jigten Sumgön said, still, because of her effort of 9 months, you survived. Even if someone else does all the raising and all those things that this Geshe was talking about. And in comparison to that, what people do to you, I mean, it's like, what if Elon Musk gives you $100 million? I mean, that would be like a tremendous thing, right? We'd be we'd be happy for maybe the rest of our lives and thinking of this as the greatest act ever done. The Chinese have a story, I think it's the Layman Pong. I think that's the story. So it said that Layman Pong had a bunch of gold and he wanted to practice Dharma, and for some reason he threw all his gold in the river. And the Chinese are always saying, what a great sacrifice. Um, so no matter how great your worldly sacrifice is, whatever anyone's given you, nothing compares to the gift of life itself. And so your mother, even though she's a crack whore, sorry to be so harsh, but I'm using that on purpose because I mean I know situations like that. Still got birth, and without birth, there's nothing. There's nothing. It's opportunity. So that's pretty amazing, yeah. And you're getting there through babies. That's wonderful. You know what I mean? You see, and that's it. It goes from like dealing with one baby to suddenly, that crazy guy over there, he was a baby too. Right away, you're seeing the vastness of it. Yeah. Sorry. I tell you. So yeah, that's wonderful. Okay. All right. So we dedicate the merit from this evening to all motherly sentient beings. May each and every one of us feel the gratitude owed to our mothers and never rest until that gratitude has been repaid through their liberation and enlightenment. Swaha. Okay.